If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
Hi, I'm Andrew Rich, and if you're like me, you look at the state of modern wrestling discourse and think, wow, what a cesspool. That's why I'm here to tell you about Music of the Mat Remix. That's right, your favorite wrestling music podcast is back with a new format, where I bring on a guest and we play songs related to wrestling-themed topics. It could be a wrestling reference, a wrestling concept, a wrestling pun, things of that nature. Now you might be saying, Andrew, that is a very, very tenuous connection to pro wrestling on a wrestling podcast network. Is this just an excuse to hang out with your friends and talk about music and ignore the rest of the wrestling landscape? Yes. Yes, it is. So listen to Music of the Mat Remix on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, available on Apple, Spotify, or your podcast player of choice.
Hey kids, Jeff Hawkins from Shake Them Ropes here, and for almost 15 years we have been part of Voices of Wrestling. Myself and Chris Novembrino give a review of that week's news, the lazy river of wrestling criticism of that week's WWE and AEW, and then Vader Club, where we watch something from one of our past, or something we may have missed. Smart, snarky, and sometimes serious, but not always. That's us, and if that's your vibe, we'd love to have you listen to Shake Them Ropes every week on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Gotta let it go. So fast to finger down. Dance tonight together. Here everybody's singing.你看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate for October 10th, 2025. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find us on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network feed or on our own dedicated Open the Voice Gate feed, wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on social media at Open Voice Gate. If you would like to donate to the show, click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our redcircle.com landing site. You click the red box that says sponsor this podcast, and you can set up a one-time or reoccurring donation. No obligation whatsoever, but we would like to thank our previous donors. I'm one of your hosts. It's your old pal, Mike Spears, joined alongside your other host, Case Lowe. In case, I think we ought to just get into this. 48 hours ago, I did not think we would be leading off this week's Open the Voice Gate with this kind of stuff, but Case, interesting things around the greater Dragon System coming out of 48 hours and 2 shows at Tokyo Korakuen Hall, one from Dragongate, of course, but also GLEAT, and a lot of kind of, I don't know how we should go with this, but it seems like there are some contract news that you have.
Well, I've got some news here. Very rarely do we break news, and it tends to come from one camp when we do break news. I think May of 2023 was the last time that we had an exclusive, and we'll have that once again here. But I feel like because of the president of GLEAT before that Korakuen Hall show saying that there was going to be a big announcement at that show, that there was
Right.
more attention to this GLEAT show than there had been for one, certainly this calendar year, and probably one since the Tokyo Dome City Hall show where Yamamura came back on it. I think that was at the end of 2023. So I'm curious because I'm not subscribing to that YouTube channel ever.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to how this most recent show was, and I'm going to pull up the card because, of course, I have no idea what happened on this show, but now I'm morbidly curious.
Right. And as the cursed person of record on record for GLEAT and someone who did watch this Korakuen Hall show, I talked a bit about it on my solo app a couple of weeks ago, how this and the overall 2025 for GLEAT, it has been of turmoil. Basically, as soon as Katsuhiko Nakajima entered the company, everything has been in pretty big disarray, and especially coming out of their anniversary show and the suspension then departure of Issei Onizuka and all the things that have kind of spiraled out of here to president of LIDET Hideki Suzuki announcing, as you mentioned, a big announcement on the Korakuen Hall show that has, and that I shared Case a screenshot I took yesterday watching it. The most cursed vibes I've ever seen in a single Dragon System show, including Dying Days of Dragon Door and Eldorado Case. Just it's a unique thing that these days to kind of see this. And the show itself was GLEAT GLEAT versus Koteki, or Strong Outsider, and it's the idea where they basically get everyone else in the industry to send in people for their roster to lose to. And that's basically what happened up and down through the show. Two things on the show worth kind of noting. Takahiro Yamamura, still very, very good. I hope that he can get an exit ramp coming out of this. And T-Hawk and Shinya Aoki had one of the more interesting matches that I've seen in a while. And the kind of match that, if this hit the right community 4 years ago, people would talk nonstop about the brutality, or even maybe a Segunda Kata person will talk about T-Hawk's chops. But the vibe of the show, completely bad going in. The show itself, nothing worth going home about. But we do have a new G-Rex champion coming out of it. I don't know why this is listed wrongly on both Project Pro Spirit and Cage Match. This match is not 2 minutes and 34 seconds, which if you're used to kind of observing GLEAT from a distance, you might go, yep, that seems like a GLEAT thing. As someone who's seen the match, I would put it at closer to 22 minutes. El Lindemann becomes the new G-Rex champion. And then the post-match happened, and I know that this circulated a bunch. Suwama came out and smashed a bunch of roses over Nakajima's head, and Lindemann cut this big rousing promo that ended with him challenging CIMA for the G-Rex title at their biggest show of the year at Yokohama Buntai on November 3rd. In case, this is where things get very weird here. So CIMA comes out and immediately tries to both smack Lindemann in the head, doing the, I don't know what culturally it's called, but it's like the dismissive downward slap across the forehead, of someone being an idiot, being Goku or whatnot. And then he tries to kick Lindemann, and CIMA at this point, he does slap him a couple of times, and I cannot tell at this point if they're trying to go for a shoot response or if CIMA was caught off guard by this, because CIMA then basically loses his top on Lindemann, does the very serious slow talking towards him, and goes yeah, no, I'll take your match, but that this is if this is the way that this company is going to be, then I'll take this match. And then he leaves. Lindemann continues on his promo for about 2 more minutes. CIMA comes out again, grabs a microphone, and says, well, I want to add one more thing to this match. Whoever loses this match is going to leave GLEAT. And then later on in the backstage interview, CIMA threatened that he's going to retire if he loses on November 3rd. So not a really good vibe in this promotion going to that card right there. But that was kind of the events of the show, the post-match thing. That is one thing. One other thing that was announced during this show after an intermission was the big
Wait, hold on. So,
Yeah.
but CIMA won the tag titles in this show, right?
Yes, him and Kurishio Tokyo Japan defeated Ryuichi Shaman Kawakami and Brass Knuckles June. They had 20 minutes of entrances. Where,
okay, I guess in this promotion, I can never tell if anything is done purposefully or if it's purposely bad. So, because they won the tag titles, I would lean towards everything that CIMA's saying
working
to be working, or at the very least, it much like the pipe bomb promo in 2011, not a surprise to those backstage, even if the feelings are somewhat real. But it's GLEAT, so I don't know where to go with that in terms of he or Lindemann winning. I think selfishly, just because I'm always entertained still by the presence of CIMA, I think him beating Lindemann would be fascinating on a number of levels. It would mean CIMA's a world champion at age 49 or whatever he is. It would mean that Lindemann, it would mean that Lindemann has to leave, which I think is interesting. Whether it was a 0 defense reign or a 15 defense reign, I think the idea of CIMA trying to have one last run of main event singles matches, I'm not sure it would be good. It might be depressing towards the end of it, but I'd be really intrigued by that. I would want to see those matches. So I don't know what they're going to do. I think that's really interesting, but given the way that most people, myself included, follow this promotion, I do just want to actualize that the CIMA comments are the CIMA comments, but he also did win the tag titles on this show.
Right. And if you're asking me what my reaction about it is, at least on the CIMA side of things, I think that this is the last bullet in the chamber to do anything with this promotion, is to put the title on your aging top star. And it does kind of give me a little bit of air of, it's one thing that I feel like that CIMA has always kept up his sleeve. And he did it a little bit in Wrestle 1. He did a little bit in DDT with Strong Hearts, but really he's kept for a long time. I think that this could be the chance of CIMA doing one last run on top as a heel.
Oh, that'd be interesting. I guess the problem is now this is also going to come from somebody. So if this sounds dumb, then please let me know. But this is coming from somebody that hasn't watched this promotion in over a year at this point.
Yeah.
I feel like when I turn on GLEAT, I am so unclear as to what faces are and what heels are in this promotion. Is there a determined, obvious heel unit in GLEAT right now?
Yeah, the anti-GLEAT monsters. Who they face off
that's
against.
on the nose. I should have known that. All right, fair enough. Fair play to GLEAT.
But the kind of heel unit that they are is like, they have like when Issei Onizuka was suspended and retired, and they basically just decided, all right, his unit has to go immediately now. It was not the kind of when that you're like, holy shit, this is a heel devastating unit. Okay, so it was like, oh, these are a whole bunch of kind of comedy characters, and then Chris Weiss around, and then they'll bring in I'm blanking on the guy's name from Osaka, but basically it's not necessarily a promotion that has always remained very hard and fast with heels outside of that one unit, and they've always kind of kept CIMA to the side, like outside of he stepped in for Onizuka with Kojima, because Onizuka was supposed to get a G-Rex shot when he got suspended, when he left. They've been very intentional keeping him away from this belt, and playing the card in this way feels like kind of a last gasp. Let's see what we can do to get people into Buntai, a reasonable size venue, when they've had issues basically drawing above 1,500 its entire existence.
Well, okay, so 2 more points on that, and then we can move on. But I have a few other things I want to bring up. First of all,
sure.
zero CIMA Lindemann singles matches in their career. So, do we have the full card for that show yet?
For Buntai, no, we don't. We have the GLEAT MMA card. Which,
okay, well, I don't want that. That's unfortunately not going to help me in this situation.
Basically, what they have announced is this match, a undercard trios match with the British guys of Joe Lando coming in, and then Hayato Tamura and Chuck Shimatani.
Okay, all right, and we'll get to that momentarily. So I'll say this. CIMA versus Lindemann is probably the most intriguing matchup they could possibly have because it's never happened before. And even with CIMA in the current physical state that he's in, I think it's interesting. At the very least, it's going to be interesting to watch him in a big singles match. And it's Lindemann, who is somebody who, will not factor into my SFM 50 this year because he didn't wrestle in promotions that I actually watch, and he turned 30, so he couldn't factor into my 30 under 30. But if you go back just a year's time, I was still pimping Lindemann as one of the best wrestlers in the world when he had the opportunity to do so. And I would imagine that in just a year's time, that has not changed. So I'm admittedly, I'm admittedly very intrigued by that match. So I guess despite all the messiness that's there, despite some of the confusion, I have to give credit where credit's due. They've got my attention with that match. That is the one GLEAT match I think that I'll watch this year, and we'll see what else happens on that show. Maybe I'll parachute in for something else, but they've got my attention there. Go ahead.
Just about the match, one point about it. And if given the current Dragon System politics, if there was to suddenly be a CIMA retirement match, him versus El Lindemann is the one that makes sense. That is worth stating. Like, I know we both are erring more towards work a little bit, but this is a messy promotion that's finding new levels of messy seemingly every major show. It's just... It's the retirement match that would make sense unless he's doing like a giant strong hearts and somehow everyone decides to play nice for an evening, which is never going to happen. Like, this is the retirement match to me.
I think you're right. I think he would announce a retirement show after this. I think there would be one more left in the tank, and you could still do CIMA, Lindemann, T-Hawk versus Ishida, Yamamura, and somebody else.
Yeah, and he could do that in Osaka on that show because that's where it would happen. Because I agree with you. Like, if he's just doing this as like a thing and then he's going to retire, there will be another retirement show just because this guy's still has a level of, it's not much as a comparison to like 2018, but there is a level of sponsors and stuff with him still at this point. So there has to be one of those.
I agree with that. So I think for the most part of this year, you and I haven't spent a ton of time talking about attendances, both within the context of Dragongate, but also within the larger context of Japanese wrestling. And I think that is by and large a way just because the entire industry is depressed right now. And I found covering attendances towards the back half of COVID to be far more interesting than covering attendances now because it's arrows pointing down mostly across the board. Again, I might not understand it, but a credit to Noah for doing what they've been able to do. And then Stardom, I think, is getting the proper credit. It's okay, Stardom fans. I think you're getting the proper credit for the year that you're having.
But recognize what the years were before this.
Well, I'm gonna be nice to Stardom. I think they're having an incredibly impressive year at the box office, and I'm gonna leave it at that. But
I'm just trying to be factual here.
I'm not gonna touch it. I'm gonna be very nice to Stardom fans. I think the fact that they've been able to shove it in Ross Yogawa's face is a lovely thing for the industry. I really say that unironically.
I appreciate 2025 as now like the last piece of evidence to dash that man's Hall of Fame candidacy. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, and what Stardom is doing is incredible. Sayo Kawatani has basically stepped over into pop culture at this point, and that is something that the wrestling industry has had an aggressively hard time of doing. And like, when you look at like what has happened and what booms have been post COVID, it has been those wrestlers that have been able to do that to some level or not. We see New Japan's now attempting to do that with Aaron Wolf, but I think you saw with Saya and then earlier the Sato twins, like that has been the one thing that has been able to like bring people to the venues. And for Stardom, it definitely deserves credit for being able to convert that. I mean, it's incredible, but and I'll leave it at that. I'll stop myself there.
Undoubtedly. So that means that, we haven't spent a ton of time on the Dragongate attendance. It was 1,100 for the Korakuen that we're just about to review.
I have the exact number right here. It is 1118.
Yeah, I mean that's just kind of in the ballpark of what they're doing, and it's shocking to me on a Korakuen show with a Dreamgate match and a Dragongate match that they're not automatically doing 1,500 there, let alone the fact that I think the promotion has been as good as it is. And I think the 2 title matches on this show felt hot, but this is sort of where they plateau, which is why we haven't spent a ton of time talking about this.
Yeah, and like the one thing that, since we don't really talk about this, that I feel like is worth like introducing in the conversation about this with Dragongate and basically their ceiling at 1,200. I think that now we're able to say a bit, I mean, virtually everyone who consistently watches the promotion has the overall question of, critically, everything is working. Why hasn't this worked around the box office? And I think like this is all of the departures and some of the stuff with Shimizu, and it has made it somewhat, maybe not necessarily like a radioactively toxic product, but I think that it's hard right now to bring people in lights of that. And I think that now, several months into the Korakuen as the big show era, I think that that's kind of become more clear to me over recent months.
I think all of that's true. And it's, again, I think it's a little bit like, before this Nielsen change in television American wrestling, the ratings discourse had died down just because we sort of saw where people were at and there wasn't a ton of movement one way or another. I bring all this up, and I don't mean to sound mean-spirited. With Jay, we've talked about what Japanese attendances are and how sometimes looking at a raw number can be misleading. And I think there's a lot of bad faith arguments that come in with that. But GLEAT did claim 682 for this show. Do you think there were 682 fans in the building during the course of this show?
No, I think that if that number was at 450, I would believe you on that. They only had one row of seats on the floor at one side, and it felt like they were shoving everyone to the very front of the orange seats and the east and west bleachers to try to make it at least sound decent. But as soon as anything went to the crowd case, it was very clear how bad it was. And it's a different kind of bad than I would say the when Dragongate crowd does the crowd fighting and you see that attendance there. I don't think it was close to 700. I don't think it was close to 500, to be honest.
Okay, that's kind of where I landed, because again, you look at the wide angle of this Dragongate show and how it, continues to, on the surface, look healthy. I was surprised when I saw that the 1,100 were announced. I thought, just based on the camera shots alone, that they would have done a little bit more in this building. But you compare, the wide shot of the Dragongate Korakuen to any shot from the GLEAT show that I've seen, which has now been a few of them as we've been talking. I've been, scouring Twitter for any crowd shot I can find. And
the GLEAT Twitter account case has all kinds of clips from the show. So if people think I'm just being a doomer, go look at it. I am not exaggerating about this.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's no larger point to prove here. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around there only being 400 less people in the GLEAT crowd than the Dragongate crowd, because that's 682, which is pushing 700. And I'm just, I don't know. It doesn't seem like, even with wrestlers and referees, that there's 700 people in that building.
No, maybe in the overall Korakuen building complex, 700. yeah, no, sure. But and we've talked to Jay about how attendance, just seeing the number, leads you to one conclusion that does not necessarily depict what reality is within the room, within the company too. So there could have been 682 tickets sold there.
Yes,
absolutely.
That was my larger point. That's why I want to preface this, was like, hey, they might have the cash flow of 682 tickets sold, but it did not seem like there were that many people in the building.
No, maybe 450.
No. All right. Check Shimatani.
Yeah, on the big announcement on the GLEAT show was Check Shimatani's impending departure, as he's wishing to devote himself fully to AAA, and he is returning for November for the promotion for 3 farewell matches. And the first farewell match, it was revealed immediately after Check's video, was against the returning Hayato Tamura at the Yokohama Buntai show. And it's, at least within this promotion, a longtime tag team, and it makes sense that if you were going to list the people that Check needs to face on the way out, the first person is Hayato Tamura.
It's just crazy that when you and I were both still keeping up with this promotion pretty regularly, we would both go wild about Czech, and we felt like he was a guy with a ton of potential, and there was a lot to get excited about. And then that excursion got announced, and we went, oh, that's weird. That's kind of a bummer. We liked him in Japan, and then for a while it was, we can't find this guy with a search party, and then he wound up in Mexico, and
he was in Uganda with CIMA.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. And to just have another young talent, I mean, look, I think anybody that had any long-term hope for what this promotion could be, I think that has largely sailed by now. But to just have another guy come and go and mean nothing in the grand scheme of things, especially one as talented as he is pretty shocking to me. Now, I have not seen him work in AAA with Kento and Takuma, but he suggested in the video that aired on the GLEAT show that he and Kento and Takuma had signed some sort of deal with AAA or with WWE, which I guess is the same thing. And I have now confirmed through a second source unrelated to the Cubs fan tweet, because he was the one translating it, but I have confirmed with a second source that indeed Kento, Takuma, and Czech Shimatani have some sort of deal in place. Now, again, whether that's AAA exclusive or whether that is some sort of United States-based WWE branded deal, I do not know. But I do know at this point that they have, at least my understanding, has come to terms with AAA on some sort of deal.
Yeah, and I think that for those who don't really keep up with that, it's worth noting that after the departure, AAA became the place that Kento and Takuma really landed at, and that when Nobu-san, as he's called in AAA, Czech Shimatani, came across, he very quickly was integrated into their group. And even though they were not anything close to main eventing, I think they had like one trios title shot recently. They've been consistently the basically the requisite foreigners for AAA undercards for the greater part of, I'm trying to think when Czech showed up there, but maybe at last year and a half.
Yeah.
And at least for what AAA is right now under the WWE banner or whatever it is within Mexico, they have found that kind of role there for it that I think I can only say for myself, given how everything was in 2023, the fact that they found this level of stability and doing it distinct from GLEAT is a credit to them. I mean, like for a while, it looked very, very bad for them. And at a certain level, I think it has to be maybe not like a credit, but I mean, like they stuck around and now they're signed somewhere with maybe a potential of elevation into WWE, which is something that was not even remotely on the radar when they left the promotion in May of 2023.
I have a hard time arguing with you, even if I have a massively different mindset. I mean, these are people that have failed upwards into this position. And to me, my read on this is I'm going to be waiting to see when, if ever, they're on any sort of WWE produced, as in airing on YouTube or I don't know,
any of the
where
Worlds Collide stuff or anything
exactly.
like that.
If they make it onto those shows ever, I will throw up my hands and say more power to you guys. I think that's incredible that they wound up there. I will believe it when I see it though. And it's not talent in question, obviously. I just don't see a few Japanese guys who are 5'5" on their best day ever making it onto their programming, but perhaps I'm incorrect.
Yeah, and I think more realistically, keeping that in mind, like they're going to inhabit that role that they found, that they kind of carve for themselves, because AAA has always had like a level of foreigners, and sometimes it was more at the top of the card with Legionnaire, Exonera, and Conan, and then sometimes it's just been you know, trying to bring in strong hearts. So that's always been an aspect of it. And if you're to ask me what is the most realistic thing, I think this basically just means to expect them on AAA undercards throughout the country of Mexico, not America, but the country of Mexico, and not on the WWE YouTube stuff. I just don't think that they're going to reach to that point. And if they do, it's just going to be in a job capacity at best. I think this is just a consistent contract for them to work in Mexico, to be frank.
Now, a month ago, I said there's no way they'll ever be able to sign a deal now that this WWE partnership has happened. So I was wrong there, and maybe I'll be wrong again. But I think you're correct. I think these guys are. It might sound demeaning to say house show fodder when they've proven that they're a valuable role, at least in the context of AAA exclusively. But I feel like as time goes along, it's going to be harder for Laredo Kid to get on some of these Worlds Collide shows because they're going to have so many NXT guys and just, whatever else. I worry about the future of like Laredo Kid. And so that should contextualize how I feel about Kento and Takuma. I don't know. I don't see it happening. But I was wrong a month ago about them ever signing a deal. So maybe I'll be wrong again.
Yeah, and I just hope, just personally for them, like this kind of stabilizes things, and that I mean the stuff that I've seen from Tokyo Bad Boys since they formed the group, it has been the better level of stuff from Kento and Takuma since departing the company. It's just something where they're going to be jobbers. Like they were feuding with I'm blanking on what is around it. Mr. Iguana. They're feuding with Mr. Iguana
and
Hamburguesa. Yeah. Like that's the kind of level of stuff that I fully anticipate to be on that kind of level, but like not with Mr. Iguana anymore, since he's apparently the AAA star that has crossed over the best.
And by the way, maybe that's good for them to be able to rely on shtick at a time where I think what magic Takuma captured for 6 months in 2022 and in 2021 and early 2022, I think that's long gone. And so maybe, and I say this not to be regressive, because I certainly don't like the way that, say, Taka Michinoku and Kaientai were presented at the WWF, but unfortunately, a lot of people do, and a lot of people that were running the company then are running the company now. If they want to just wheel them out as a new version of that, I'm sure they would succeed, because no matter how washed I think they might be as wrestlers, undoubtedly they have some charisma that's just ingrained in their soul that will never go away. So maybe they'll figure something out on that front. I wouldn't necessarily count on it, but it's a real possibility. But again, and this will sound regressive, but I'm using WWE brain, not my brain. I'm just not sure WWE can wrap their heads around being this United States-based promotion that is running something in Mexico that now might have to integrate 3 Japanese guys into what they do. That feels like a lot of movement for that company that they might not be capable of handling.
Yeah, and I think it's without any sense of giving them credit, because they have that track record that Kaientai route is kind of, if you're looking at it as a pure monetization path, where like if they engage in that route, they will be set. And I
think they could do it. I think that is a skill level that they still have.
Right. Yeah. But like that's at best way you can assume for them. Like this is, I mean, Akira Tozawa has basically hung on to the undercard for a decade now. Good for him. He has more money than anyone not named Okada or Ultimo. But like that's just how that company views people, and especially views Japanese wrestlers. So yeah.
But yes, I have confirmed that they have some sort of deal in place. We'll see what that is. And that does appear to be a package deal with Kento Takuma and the former Czech Shimatani. So we'll have to see what comes of that. If they start getting featured on those Worlds Collide shows, we'll talk about it here. I watched the first one. It was so turned off by the presentation, and I was surprised that more people weren't. I was surprised that more people weren't annoyed by Corey Graves in the same way that I was, but I guess that's my own issue. But we'll have to see what comes of it. But again, I expect them to now just have, if you could get more steady work in AAA on those house shows, I would expect them to have that. But I don't know what sort of upward mobility we'll see other than that.
Yeah, I just can't see Takuma Fujiwara with how he looks in 2025 doing like a shooting star to the outside on one of these shows.
No, that was the thing. I mean, that's why I was so annoyed by the first one with Vikingo and Gable. Was I thought it was gentrified Lucha Libre, and I was very bothered by that. And I haven't seen any of the shows since, but everything that I've heard has made it seem like that's only gotten worse, and that whatever you could say was the spirit of AAA before the merger has now completely evaporated, and now it's Latin America NXT, which is something that I have absolutely zero interest in. So no, I don't think we're going to see a Takuma shooting star press to the floor, even if he does get on those shows. And I don't know if he's ever going to get on those shows, so I don't think we have to worry about it.
Funny side note, Case knows I'm watching the Taiji Shimori show as we're doing this, and guess who tried to do a Dolphin Clutch on Taiji?
Oh, God, I don't know who's on the show, so I'm going to say Shun Skywalker.
Atsushi Katoge. I haven't gotten to the Dragon Block yet.
Ah, fun. I like that. All right, shout out to Atsushi Katoge.
Yeah, Osaka vibes there.
Good. I like that. I watched, I had the day off of work today, which was rare, but it was nice. I was able to wake up, and as I was writing the written review for this Korakuen Hall show, which will be up on Monday morning on voicesofwrestling.com, I went to the AEW YouTube channel because they've got Ring of Honor stuff that they're uploading now, like old school Ring of Honor stuff, and there's a Briscoe Brothers compilation on there that I wasn't sure what was on it. I clicked on it. First match was the Briscoe Brothers versus Christopher Daniels and Matt Sydal from 2007, which I had never seen before. And let me tell you, worth a look. If that's not a match that rings a bell to you, that was the 5th year festival in Chicago. So the only time they ever ran that building. And I think the main event of that show was Joe and Nigel against Morishima and Homicide, maybe, or maybe it was Joe and Homicide against Nigel and Morishima, whatever it was. It's a famous show for how bad the building is. I had never seen the tag title match before. Man, I tell you, Matt Sydal, there's few people in wrestling more underappreciated than that guy is. He puts on a clinic there, and the Briscoe Brothers are the Briscoe Brothers. So nothing to do with Atsushi Katoge or Osaka Pro or anything. But as we talk about old wrestling briefly before we get to this Korakuen show, I just have to mention that because that's on YouTube and available for everybody.
Yeah, 2007, Matt Sydal, there was not much wrong with him as a wrestler. Like if you're picking a year of him, I think that might be one of the peak years to pick.
Yes, no, he's really well. We'll talk about Matt Sydal here in just a minute. Actually, I've got some Matt Sydal stuff on the docket that you don't even know about.
Oh, hey there, I'm stoked about that. But let's talk about this Dragongate Korakuen. It was the Gate of Victory on the 8th. Headline, but 2 title matches open the Dreamgate title. Madoka Kikuta defending against Benkei opened the Triangle Gate title. Gaja Dokuro versus Shun Mare plus Kazuma Komura. And I think just off the top, let's just do a big picture case. What were your big takeaways from the show?
I thought this show progressed in a way that was really nice to see. I thought there was a great opening match. I thought things slowed down a little bit after that and then built to the pre-intermission big 6-man tag with the Panther Brothers debut, and then post-intermission, the 2 matches there, I both went notebook on, with the Triangle Gate match being my favorite match of the night. We are once again left, and I forget who was saying this on Twitter. Somebody, oh man, I should find that tweet. Somebody said it so well, in that even on Dragon Gate shows that don't hit the hardest, and I thought this was a very good show to be clear, but even on Dragon Gate Korakuen shows that don't hit the hardest, they always seem to be able to have some sort of mystery on the show that makes you excited for the next month. And so between the Triangle Gate match, which I adored, and the post-match angle there, they certainly have my attention for what's to come next. And then I think you have in this main event what has become a pretty polarizing Dreamgate match. And by the end of it, I think once again, Madoka Kikuta looked like a dominant world champion in a match that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, so I think I was much more towards the positive end of the Dreamgate match, and I think we can get into how Madoka Kikuta is working as champ through the first 2 Dreamgate matches in a second. The thing that I have really enjoyed about the shift to loading up these Korakuen Hall shows and making them like their own distinct identity, and if you don't think that it's treated like this, the fact that because Gawara had this as a live production, that they were running videos, preview graphics, stuff like this, it is being treated as more than what they would treat at Korakuens in the past. But yeah, the one thing that they have really hit on each month and looking at for how November is going to play out and looking ahead to already coming out of this show, looking at that Korakuen, you already have the start of King of Gate as the incitement, along with the post match of the Triangle Gate. Who is the third man? Case? Who is the third man? And I think it's something where wrestling in 2025, I just think we've really gotten away from the show-to-show storytelling. And in a way, Dragongate has returned to tradition a little bit, in a way that it's hard to be completely up to date on Dragongate if you aren't watching the non-Tokyo shows every month. But it does feel like that we are at this time that you can go Korakuen to Korakuen to Korakuen and treat it somewhat like that. And we started seeing this last year, but I think they've really found a way to create a very compelling 2.5-hour wrestling program. Sometimes you get some of those crazy 30 minutes of what all is happening, but at the end of this, if you're like treating this like a, I don't know, like a bingeable TV show or whatnot, you're just like, okay, now let's see what's going to happen next. And I think that's been a real testament to Dragongate's creative as encountering these problems.
Well, it's why I'm surprised that the attendance in this building is not better, because if you go month to month, there does seem to be, I'm flipping through my reviews right now for the entire year, and there does seem to be a concerted effort of either going Korakuen to Korakuen or Korakuen to pay-per-view. Even just looking at the second half of the year, the July Korakuen, as it should have, was a full court press for Kobe World. You reset the deck a little bit after World. That August Korakuen was a full court press for Dangerous Gate, and then you come out of that, and then that September Korakuen, we left last month knowing by the end of that show there was going to be a Dream Gate match and then a Triangle Gate match with a mystery opponent, with a mystery partner rather, and I'm surprised that that's not working more. And as you go throughout the entire calendar year, there's been a lot of that. Whereas my complaint, say 2022, 2023, was sometimes you would leave these Dragongate Korakuen shows and it would happen in a vacuum and you'd go, okay, cool. And then you'd have to watch Kobe and then Fukuoka and then Osaka, and then you'd get a Korakuen lineup and you weren't really sure what was coming next. And there's undoubtedly an effort this year to make sure that when you leave Tokyo at the beginning of the month, one month, at least the big stuff coming the next month. And I'm surprised that that's not working better for them, because I was hyped going into this show just knowing about the 2 title matches, let alone getting the full card with the Panther Brothers, with the opening match that I thought was really exciting, with the D-Courage versus Vibes match, which at the very least was very fun, and then sort of this bonus sprinkle treat of a match of Kagatora and Susumu against Minoru and Lee, which was awesome, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. Again, it kind of goes back to the theme of this entire year of, only 1,100, because I think they put in a lot of effort to get more people into this building.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of come to the optics conclusion about the ceiling, just as like that, just because it is that great of story to show storytelling, and it feels like up and down the card, and even the stuff that like your Mochi Fuji 8-man tags and even a pretty compact D-Courage versus Natural Vibes, nothing was bad. Nothing was even really wasting your time on this show, and I think that I'm wondering when the optics lift, considering that as a negative for them right now. And it's just seeing like, okay, maybe as time goes on, opinions might change. And then maybe 1,100 becomes 1,200 if you keep on putting out shows like this. And I think having main event Dreamgate matches that are as different and as and a complete champion as we have in Madoka Kikuta coming out of this Korakuen Hall show should provide something show to show, as well as seeing who can stop. And now Madoka Kikuta successful at Korakuen Hall with his V1 defense with a rolling lariat after a war of bombs towards the end of it, but a match that's getting a really divergent response. I think basically for the first 5 minutes that were very, very slow.
I wasn't even bothered by that. I felt like they held my attention throughout the match. And this was another one of those deals, and this happens where, I'm watching this show live, but by the time the main event hits the ring, I'm at work, and so I've got one eye on this and one eye on stuff that pays my bills and is far more important. So I'm sort of juggling that. So I was able to watch the middle portion of this match somewhat uninterrupted, and then in real time miss the opening moments, miss the finishing stretch. And by way of that, I was a little surprised in real time to see that the reaction was, this was plotting, this was boring, Kikuta dropped the ball, whatever. And by the way, everybody's entitled to their opinion. That's more than okay. It actually made me excited to check this match out because I was curious to see where these guys would have went wrong and where they missed the mark. And then I watched the match, and it was kind of exactly everything that I was expecting Kikuta versus Ben for the Dreamgate title to be, which is, you're right, it started a little bit slow. Nothing to a point where I even had to note it in my notes or in my review. I thought it was just the feeling out process for a Dreamgate match. And then by the time that they turn things up down the finishing stretch, you're dealing with two guys at wrestling who I think are some of the very best at coming up with exciting and different finishing stretches. And we saw them put their minds together and deliver something that actually reminded me of Shun versus Ben from 2019, with this having the added benefit of Ben not getting knocked out cold. And so the finish was far more satisfying than that match 6 years ago.
Yeah, and I think that what really helped and aided in this was the buildup that Ben only really was able to sit clear of the hip attack once, and that was the time that he's like, hey, if I can avoid the hip attacks as he was in the Royal Sambo a couple weeks ago, then maybe he has a shot with that. So it kind of became this real, at least for me, compelling match where every time there was a hip attack in the corner, and then as Ben started shrugging them off, like at the start of the match, like, I don't know if he's going to get up after this one, and then he starts shrugging it off, and that just infuriates Kikuta, and then it turns into a hell of a closing stretch, especially with like they go for the knockout tease very early on, and then it goes towards a different ways that Ben takes the hip attack into the corner, including a really, what I thought was devastating looking one where Ben is on the top, he's slung downward, so he's against the turnbuckle pad, and instead of going steamroller downwards, Kikuta leaps in the air with it, and it looked absolutely devastating. Ben basically unloading the entire clip outside of a Benkei bomb, but eventually Kikuta getting into position and landing enough lariats that he was able to, and hip attacks, to finally get in position for the rolling lariat kill shot. I was 4.25. I thought that building to that sort of conclusion and having that sort of opening case, I thought it actually kind of paid out as Benkei kind of reaches a certain level, and then he's able to kind of deep into the depths and go Terminator and try to see if that's what's able to defeat this monster of a champion, that ultimately it was not enough, and we will see who coming out of King of Gate will be the next opponent for him.
Couldn't agree more on the way that this match concluded. Again, just to reiterate my point, it was what I was hoping it would be, was that there was going to be one half of this match and a feeling out process where, and I think they were smart to maybe not hyper fixate on the knee of somebody or the shoulder of somebody. It was a pretty broad approach by both guys, which then didn't hinder them into this box of being forced, like they either had to sell this one specific part of the body or shake off it and not sell this one specific part of the body. By the time that they were ready to throw bombs, they were ready to throw bombs in an uninhibited fashion. And I liked the fact that as we got down the finishing stretch, it was your move, my move, your move, my move, big kick out from you, big kick out from me. I thought all of that worked out great. And so by the end of the match, even knowing the result when I was finally able to sit down and watch it, there's a Benkei spear where he sort of got me on the false finish. I mean, Kikuta just got his shoulder up at the very last possible moment, and then from there, he was able to kill him with the lariat, and from there we go. So I thought this was a really, really strong outing from Kikuta. I really liked the way that he carried himself as champion. I think it's such a refreshing change, even for as much as I loved the Yamato run. I thought this was such a nice change of pace from the Dreamgate matches that we had seen for the last year. I really, really liked the work that he did in this match, and I'm at 4 stars flat on it.
Yeah, really special stuff. After the match, Kikuta ran down everyone and said he wanted to see who's going to be the next person to step up and get knocked down. That led to GM Ryo Saito hopping up on the apron, which the crowd thought, "Oh crap! Does this mean that GM Cyrio is going for the Dreamgate after all this time?"
Just to cut you off here real quick, an incredible moment that you have to go back and watch, because and Saito even says it in his promo right after. He's like, I got up on the apron at the wrong time, but Kikuta's begging essentially for somebody to step up and challenge him. And Saito gets on the apron and Korakuen loses their minds, all at the incidental timing of it all.
Yeah, a hilarious moment, but that was in reality an announcement for King of Gate 2025. Case that is Dragongate's #1 championship, and it is a 32 person field, and in 2025, a single elimination. We have the first round. 28 of the wrestlers have been announced so far, and I don't know where we want to kind of take it with King of Gate, if we want to save that more in depth later on in the show here. But
let's do it now, because we're in the vicinity of the Dreamgate, and
yeah,
I don't have a ton to say. Let me pull up these matches real quick for Cork. And now there is the issue, and I don't know anything, and I don't think you know anything because we haven't talked about it.
Did you want me to give the caveat here? I'm not going to react about the network schedule until November 6th, because as of now, they have the first 2 nights of King of Gate essentially are the ones that are set to be taped as of the schedule. But we've seen how that changed with Ray Day Prairie House in the past, so we don't know. We'll see what happens.
They've been in the habit lately of, and I guess maybe they didn't do it for September, but in the summer, they were uploading some house shows from the month at the very end of the month, which was upsetting, because like the July ones, if my memory serves me correctly, might have been taped before World, but then they went up after World, which at that point was like a totally different promotion. But even if those details are not entirely correct, they were uploaded just in the modern world too far after they took place for me to really fully care about them. And I fear that that might be what they do with King of Gate. But we're for sure getting Korakuen on the 6th. We're for sure getting Kobe Art Center on the 8th. And then we will go through a whole month of stuff not making tape until we get to the finals on December 3rd.
and we might suddenly be like, okay, the stuff around Kansai will get taped. We just don't know. With what we are given right now, the schedule for November, they already have their 2 nights in Ideon before that. It is Art Center. It is Kobe World. They have Gated Nostalgia and Shinjuku Face. I expect that to be on the network, but that's not going to have any tournament matches there. And
what bums me out is I would have rather them done a 2-night kickoff in Osaka. That would solve, I think, all of this tape issue. You could do the same format, but you've got 2 nights in Osaka there. Just put King of Gate stuff. I mean, what they do this year for Ray Day Parade House was 1 night Champion Gate, 1 night Ray Day Parade House, or 1 night Nostalgia Gate. I forget what exactly
it was. 1 night
was.
Nostalgia Gate. Yeah.
Yeah, just I do that.
Oh no, the first night wasn't even a special night because it was all built on Yoshioka's return in that 8-man.
Okay, yeah, I don't understand why you couldn't do for that double shot in Osaka, first night Champion Gate, second night King of Gate kickoff, and then have some momentum going into that Korakuen show. I don't really understand that, but nevertheless, on November 6th, we're gonna get Homare versus Ryoya Tanaka. That's a first time ever singles match in Dragongate proper. They had a Prime Zone singles match last year that went 3 minutes and ended in a DQ. Luis Mate versus Ishin. Naruki Doi versus Shun Skywalker, which is also a first time ever singles match. And then Yuki Yoshioka versus Madoka Kikuta, a Kobe World 2023 rematch. And then on November 8th, we will get Yamato versus Hyo, which admittedly I'm quite excited about. Dragon Kid versus a foreign wrestler yet to be named. I think I know who that is, and if that's the case, I think that's going to be a pretty interesting match. And then Dragon Dia versus Rito, which I'm thrilled about, and Strong Machine J versus the winner of a Kobe Royal Sambo Battle Royal.
So that's where we're probably seeing your Marias, your problem dragons, the people that are just basically showing up for either Kobe or Tokyo shows. That's when I guess that would produce that. But I really like the 4 matches we're getting at Korakuen. Ishin famously talked about how much he enjoyed his King of Gate match against Mochizuki Jr. in Korakuen. So him versus Luis Monte is going to be a nice, interesting challenge. And then, yeah, the other 3 matches, you're getting first-time matches. And I think the match that people were maybe, including me, considering as the possible Yokohama main event popping up right here. So it's looking interesting. I don't know if at this time I'm really in the position of having a strong enough opinion and saying who I think is going to win it. I think Shun Skywalker being in the same quadrant as Madoka Kikuta makes things interesting, though.
Well, this is where I don't know if hung up is the right term, but this is where I'm sort of curious to see where things go, because just looking at the calendar, this tournament's going to conclude on that Wednesday, December 3rd Korakuen show, and then you're going to have a second Korakuen on Tuesday, December 16th, and then you're going to have one January Korakuen this year, which is a Sunday, which is awesome. That's on January 18th, and then before Fukuoka on the 23rd of February, you have a February 5th Korakuen. So you'll have 3 more Korakuen shows after the finale of King of Gate. I bring all of that up because in my head going into this announcement, I assumed this would be a vanity tournament for Yuki Yoshioka in the same way that King of Gate 2019 was for Benkei, and in the same way that Summer Adventure Tag League 2011 was for Akira Tozawa and BB Hulk. This, to me, in my head, was going to be a way to go, Yuki Yoshioka, welcome back to the top spot. You'll be headlining Fukuoka in February. Because of the way this tournament is laid out, though, I guess it wouldn't surprise me if he loses in round 1 or if he wins the entire thing, and I feel like that's a 50-50 bet, and if he wins the entire thing, they're going to have to figure out a way to stretch Yoshioka versus Kikuta to February, unless they want to get really weird and do that at the January Korakuen show, which I don't see happening.
Yeah, it does kind of make you look at that quadrant and go like, whoever out of Kikuta, Yoshioka, and Skywalker come out of that into the final 4 is kind of the overwhelming favorite, because you look at the other quadrants, Monte and Benkei and Foreign Wrestler come to mind, and the ones that would go up against them. And then on the other side of the bracket, I think Yamato, Hyo, and Homare are the likely people out of the top portion of that one. And on the bottom portion, it's a real question mark of like Strong Machine J or KZ or a Foreign Wrestler, basically. It's just interesting to me that like the people that I would view with realistic potential seem to all be overloaded into one of the 4 quadrants.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. I think it's a very interesting tournament based on the format of it. And again, that Yoshioka versus Kikuta match coming up top, I think puts this tournament in a really interesting position, because if Yoshioka loses, then I'm not sure who I would pivot as my second place guy, because I don't think they're going to go back to Shun versus Kikuta. I think Monte is past that point in his career. They just did Ben.
They're not going to have Daya win back to back.
That's so funny. I was just looking at Daya going, I don't think they're going to have him win back to back.
I think Homare is going on a run, but he's not winning.
That's the thing I was just about to say is, are we sure this is not a Homare vanity tournament where he would go through Tanaka, which he can do, and then Yamato versus Hyo, which I think either of those victories would mean a great deal. It's just a matter of how they want to position him. And then you're looking at, some combination of Dragon Kid, Jason Lee, Strong Machine J, Yoshiki Kato. So probably Homare and Kato and deeper into the bracket. And then, on the other side, as we get to the semifinals.
You would have Homare and Kato as a semifinal match, because that's when they would meet.
Okay, there. Okay, I wasn't sure if I was missing around it there just based on the photo I'm looking at. Yeah, Homare and Kato in the semifinals. Assuming that's the way they're doing it and that they're not flipping the. They might be doing the thing where, well, no, because it's not a points bracket. So yeah, it would be Homare and Kato in the semifinals, and then on the other side of the bracket, who knows? It might be Homare's tournament.
It might be Hamare's tournament. Kikuta winning it as champ, can't discount that. That would make open questions for those December, January, February Korakuens you were talking about. The person that I would put out as a dark horse, and it would be a major push up for them, just because it seems very much like he's been biding his time, especially since Love and Peace came about. I think Hyo, given Hyo's history in King of Gate tournaments, is liable as much of anyone to come out of that half of the bracket to go as a potential, really. I mean, like, this could be the Hyo show. Like, I don't put a high percentage of that, but it just kind of, he's been kind of underground a little bit, it seems like. And it feels like to me that you could use this tournament as the way to kind of get him to that level if that's the way you want to go.
I'm with you there. I think I would put my money on Homare over Hyo, but I don't think that can be discounted. I guess my question on the so this has completely reframed my way of thinking about this, because now I actually think Kikuta is going to beat Yoshioka, and I think Kikuta will lose in the semifinals. They love beating a Dreamgate champion in the semifinals, but who comes out of that other side of the bracket?
I mean, I don't think Susumu is. I don't think
I'd put the fucking Dreamgate on him after his performance at this tournament, but I think you're right. I don't think it's going to be him.
Yeah, just because that quadrant, so this quadrant that would go up against Kikuta is Monte, Ishin, Fuda, Kagetora.
Let's go two at a time. So let's go by the opening round matches. Monte or Ishin. I don't see Ishin making the finals because I don't think they're going to have
Ishin over Kikuta.
Yes, I don't think they're going to have a heel that isn't Kikuta in the finals. That's what I'm a little hung up on. So Ishin, no. Monte, this feels like not the year to do that.
But they could get his groove back.
Well, I have nothing but positive things to say about Monte on this podcast, but it just doesn't. That doesn't feel like that's his journey this year. That would be very strange if this was the year where they really went full throttle with Monte and King of Gate.
Yeah, I mean, and similarly, it feels like this isn't the year they go full throttle on Strong Machine J on the other side of the bracket.
Yeah, no, I don't put a ton of stock into Strong Machine J there. Although I do like the idea of he and Junior meeting in the second round. Of course, we probably won't see it, but what are you going to do? So okay, so Ishin, no. Monte, unlikely. What's next?
Foreigner versus Rhea Fuda. And I am going to guess that Foreigner is going to be Johnny Valletta.
That's a possibility. I know of a Foreigner coming over to Dragongate later this year. It would make more sense for that person to be up against Dragon Kid.
Yeah.
This could be Valletta, and I guess that's a possibility there. So, and then you do Monte versus Valletta again.
Like, having Valletta's character in this kind of tournament is kind of creating problems for yourself, because Valletta can't win this tournament.
Yes, I agree with that.
Valletta can't win this tournament, and you're going to have him go through Kikuta. He does not make sense here, or at least on this side of the bracket. He could be the Battle Royal winner against Strong Machine J. That could be very possible. And I could see that being a better situation where he goes to the semifinals and Homare overcomes Johnny Valletta there. I could see that happening, but I can't see that happening on that side of the bracket. It has to be as the Battle Royal winner. And I don't think he's going up against Dragon Kid. So he could be in it. I just don't think it's going to be against Fuda if you seriously want to have him in the tournament.
I'm sending a DM right now to see if I can privately figure out who that second foreign wrestler is going to be. And I will possibly have to backtrack and change my thoughts, because if it was Flamita, they would just put Flamita in the tournament. So I don't think it's him. And I'm trying to figure out what else is going on there. But let's say it's a foreign wrestler in Ryofuda. I think we could say no on both those guys.
And I think as much as we would like to say otherwise, it's a absolute no on Kagetora, and it's a I'm sorry, but no about Jackie Kamei.
I think that they might finish in a double count out and just eliminate themselves. I could see Dragongate just telling both of those guys to fuck off. why bother?
Go off, go home, geeks.
Oh God, it's never gonna happen the way I want it to.
So Susumu might have the best shots getting out of this quadrant case.
It's not impossible. I was writing about Susumu in my written review and just thinking about, how much I love him as a wrestler, and undoubtedly the Kai match in 2022 was the end of him as a front of the line guy. He had sort of held his own up until then, and even throughout the M3K stuff, which at points, that was my favorite thing going on in this company, was anything M3K was doing. He was there. He was a Dragongate champion, but it's never been the same with Susumu. The thing that I worry about with him is that it's now, unless I'm forgetting something major, and I'm going to go to his cage match just real quick, just to make sure I'm not forgetting something obvious like a big singles match. And I don't feel like I am. He had Kikuta and King of Gate last year.
His last major one was Kai at Dead or Alive in 2023.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's the match I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been so long for him since he's been in a position like that. Here's what I was forgetting. He wrestled Monte for the Dreamgate in 2024. That's what I was forgetting. Good match. Forgettable match.
That was right.
Match.
Yeah, that was like one of the better matches in his in Monte's title run.
Yeah, no, that was good. I forgot about that. So that's what I mean. But even then, I just worry that even though it's Susumu, he can turn back the clock. He has history in King of Gate, 2014 winner, few-time finalist. The dynamics of let's say it's him and Hamare. The dynamics of him and Hamare in the ring for a King of Gate finals, that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it also makes it hard to do that when you've had like the recently in people's minds the last Mochizuki getting a Dreamgate shot too, because that feels like that kind of feels the old guy void for the year.
Yeah, and look, Susumu and Hamare, they can have all the singles matches that they want. I'm sure that would be incredible.
They could have a 1-9 series and Spears of Asian's produce. Absolutely.
It would be, it's a great opening match in Fukuoka. It's a great main event in Korakuen. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure that's what you want, because it's not like, oh, Susumu and Kikuta had this thing 3 years ago, and Susumu can be working towards that in the main event, and there would be a reason to have Susumu versus Kikuta after that. This now sounds like I'm slagging off on Susumu, which is never a position that I've been in before, and not one that I necessarily want to be. Maybe him doing the Jumbo no Kashi flash pin round 1, round 2, round 3, maybe all of a sudden by the time that he hits the ring for that finals, we're all going like, that's our guy Susumu holding down the line. He's been here before, he can do it again. Maybe it would work out, but on paper, there's now such a great generational divide between Susumu and Hamare that I'm just not sure that would be good for either of them. The optics of that might be too weird to get over.
Yeah, I just don't know if that's the plan. And it just feels like, even though I feel like that's a level of comfort that you can go to, and maybe as an appeal to turned off Dragon System fans, that can maybe get people into the door if it gets to that thing. I just don't know how you could build that up in the way to make it not feel awkward and actually feel like, okay, this is like the last gasp of this, because you've done last gasp of Mochizuki, you've done Yamato being the wall of Yamato, but now it feels like you're almost rehashing.
Here's the thing. They did Yamato versus Mochizuki in this building with 3 other title matches on the show this year, and it didn't make a difference at the box office. I don't think Susumu versus Hamare is going to bring anybody back to the building that has already made up their mind on not going again.
No, that is a true and fair point. But that's
So
gonna
that-
get Kiss.
Well, so that leaves UT and Takashi there, Mochizuki and Minoura.
Minoura.
The thing is, the most interesting option is Naruki Doi, but they're not going to do that.
Yeah, because Minoura, you figured out Minoura. You don't need to muck it up again. Mochizuki, you've just done Mochizuki. Doi, they're not going to do Doi for countless reasons, but Doi having a miracle running through, let's just say he runs through Shun Skywalker, Kota Minoura, then I guess in that scenario probably would have to be Yuki Yoshioka. It probably wouldn't be Madoka Kikuta at that point. But that would be compelling. They're not going to do it. He's a freelancer, and freelancers don't go far in these tournaments. But that would be an interesting way to go.
It's been ages since they've pushed him to that degree. His schedule would be November 6th. He's at Korakuen against Shun. The winner of that match, their second round match will be November 24th against the winner of Mochizuki versus Minoura, and they could very easily do Doi versus Minoura, and that's
what
part of
building
life.
Is that though?
That's in Azuka City General Gymnasium. That's a national holiday on Monday the 24th.
Have they already announced his November dates yet?
I don't think so. I have not seen anything. If you wouldn't mind looking at that, because the winner of that match, that's November 24th, again, national holiday, Azuka City, and then the winner of that match is either going to wrestle on the 25th, the next day, in Oita, or they're going to wrestle the day after that on Wednesday the 26th in Umota Cultural Hall. So it would all be in succession. Doi would just spend the week with the Dragongate crew, and then from there you get your semifinals and your finals on December 3rd. So they would need him for, I think he's wrestling, I'm assuming he's on the Osaka show, so you would take the 2 Osaka dates at the start of the month, the Korakuen date, and then you would need him for 2 more at the end of the month, the 24th for sure, and then either the 25th or the 26th, and then he's going to be on the December 3rd Korakuen no matter what. I think for a variety of reasons, I think Doi versus Homare is a fascinating match. I think Doi getting pushed to that degree is fascinating. And as I just continue to comb through this block, it's looking like it's either got to be Doi or Susumu, unless I'm just completely butchering this. But looking at the bracket and the way that it's laid out, are we looking at the bracket incorrectly?
I was using the graphic that they created.
Yeah, but is that... Oh, shit. Are we doing this wrong? Hold on. Are you looking at the big, like the red graphic?
I was also looking to see if Naruki Doi's November schedule has not been released yet. His October schedule is irrelevant. But I was looking at that.
Let me send you this. We might have been looking at the wrong bracket.
Did we? That's like 20 minutes.
That's okay. If this is the right bracket, keep this all in. If it's the wrong bracket, we do have to take that out. This would be... well, this doesn't even have...
This only has half the bracket.
Yeah, okay. So I think we're looking at the right bracket. Let me send you the other half.
No, this is the exact same bracket that we saw before.
Okay, all right. So I'm not crazy.
No.
Okay, let me send you the other half just to make sure that we're right. Because the deeper I go into this.
Yeah, no. We're looking at the same thing. It's just presented differently, and it's throwing you.
All right. I'll take your word for it. But now it's it's either got to be Susumu or Doi, which doesn't make me feel great. No, which lends you to think that Kikuta's running it to the final. This is where, well, I mean, they beat KZ in the finals every year. This is really a year where you could beat KZ in the finals. Yeah, God, what an interesting bracket. Okay, I'm glad that we don't have to delete any of that.
Yeah. And now we have in our listeners' mind how many half hours of shows do they delete?
Which is none ever. But,
none ever. That was almost a disaster.
I just went into this like I did no prep on King of Gate because I was like, well, it's going to be Yoshioka's tournament. And now I'm realizing that he might lose in the first round, and everything else is super confusing now.
Yeah, and we'll see how things get clear as we get closer to it. We still have, almost a full month before it kicks off. So, and hopefully by that time we get to know who the two foreign wrestlers are.
Yeah, if anything, I think these shows will be interesting because we'll be able to tell very early on if they're heating up Susumu or not. So that's something to watch in Fukuoka this week, and it's something to watch going forward.
Absolutely. Should we talk about this Dragongate match finally?
Let's do it.
Yeah, so Gacha Dokuro makes their first successful defense. Ishin makes Kazuma Kimura go out to the death penalty, get the V1. And I know you are a little higher on this than I am. I was right at notebook for this, but Kazuma Kimura, 2 months as a pro wrestler, and this guy does not miss and has not missed yet, and has become one of the more compelling parts of the Dragongate roster.
Protected in all of the ways that you would want to protect somebody only 2 months into their career, but also he continues to shine in ways that I don't think anybody ever would have anticipated. Even those like you and I who are super high on him, just coming off of that first match against Mochizuki, he was the star of the show here. You know, I thought this was a particularly compelling performance from Ishin. I will continue to take my Yoshiki Kato victory lap. I told everybody he just needs a chance to have something to do and he'll be fine. That's what we're now seeing from him. As we got towards the end of the match, you know, the insane tope from Homare and, you know, the overall Shun Skywalker performance. It's funny just going back to the Kikuta stuff. I couldn't remember what his first offense was, and it was that title match where he won the belt against Shun, and that was 2 months ago. My Shun Skywalker panic. Maybe this guy's flying too close to the sun. He might have worked himself into a shoot. I no longer have those fears. Shun is back to being one of the best wrestlers in the world, but it was Kimura, and it was everything from the leaping cross arm breaker that he did on Yoshiki Kato onwards, where he's in the thick of this high level Dragongate finishing stretch where a million things are happening and guys are running in, and he has to be in the spot at the time. And he was. Yeah, I mean, he couldn't have done better in this environment, and I think that is utterly remarkable. And I thought he was outstanding in what was an overall outstanding Triangle Gate match.
This guy is the least chill guy that they've had as a rookie. And I remember thinking Yoshiki Kato is a man who's never woken up on the right side of the bed. I remember thinking Akihiro Sahara is like a bull in a china shop. No, Kazuma Kimura just immediately, as soon as Shun and Homare get into the ring, deciding we're starting this match right now, and just dive attacking and just being an absolute piranha the entire time. And I think that ability of his adds so much to a match like this, because you have Ishin, who I think we can say that at least inside of Gacha Dokuro is the gremlin / the one that leans more towards being the comedy heel versus a brutal heel. You got to have a situation where Ishin just got to destroy this guy towards the end. He does a really nasty Jinchu that he pulls up and immediately then goes for the death penalty to get the win. And Ishin feels like a killer after a title match where the last one he completely wore all of the black mist that he tried to spray in Fumida's face. I thought that for Ishin, feeling like that kind of killer became the benefit of Kazuma Kimura's excellent performance, because I felt like that this is something that seeing that side of Ishin going into King of Gate season was a nice thing to see.
Well, we're now at a point where Ishin is leading guys, which is really exciting. I mean, this feels like one of the first times where Ishin has clear veteran superiority over somebody, and he was able to play into that in every possible way that his character should have. I mean, just to read from my notes here to show how involved Kimura was in the finishing stretch, but also, you know, how this became an Ishin match by the end of it. So again, you have this leaping cross arm breaker from Kimura onto Yoshiki Kato. That was the spot of the match, spot of the show. Utterly incredible. Minoru runs in, tries to break it up. Shun Skywalker hits him with a running Hurricane Rana. Jason Lee comes in with a chair. Homare super kicks Jason Lee. Chair lands in the ring. Homare hits the chair on the back of Yoshiki Kato. Homare then does a, for lack of a better term, buck wild tope to the floor. Kimura has Yoshiki Kato in a triangle hold for a very, very long time. Ishin breaks that hold up. Judo throw on Ishin into a Shun Skywalker jackknife pin. That goes for 2.9. Super kick from Homare into a judo throw arm breaker on Ishin. That gets transitioned into a triangle choke, just like he did on Kato. Ishin turns that triangle choke into a power bomb, but Kimura counters that power bomb with a cross arm breaker. That's completely insane. They both get back to their feet. Pop up German from Ishin to Kimura. That gets a 2.9. Ishin hits the finish, like you said, which looked absolutely devastating on Kimura. 2.9, but Ishin pulls his shoulders off the mat. Go back and watch that spot. Look at Kimura's face. Ishin's great in that spot. Kimura holds up his end of the bargain there, and then you get the death penalty for the finish. That's essentially the last 5 minutes of the match. And again, I went 4.5 stars on this.
Really special stuff. Immediately after this, Shunmare expel Kimura. He was there to fill out the team. They don't need him anymore. And Shun starts talking about how he has connections through the end of the earth. And the third man jumps into the ring, a very tall man in a blue mask that kind of looks like a peacock. And it's clear that he is now the third person running with Shunmare now. And maybe this is the next trio to go after the trio in Gachadokuro.
I got nothing on this. I'm just as intrigued as everybody else is to see where this goes.
Yeah, just really cool. I don't really have any inclination or idea of where it could go, and that's very kind of exciting for this. His height immediately makes you wonder if, hey, is Takuma Nishikawa still around somehow and he just went dark instead of retiring? But I don't think so. But it's real exciting, and I like this way that Shunmare aren't able to get anyone in Dragongate that either one that they believe in and two want to work with them. So now Shun has to cast the net and we get mystery people.
I think it's insane when the first two thoughts I had were, is that Takuma Nishikawa or is that Yuma Anzai? And those are dangerous expectations to have, but given the size of that man under the mask, that's where my mind went. And I struggle to think of what this could be because it's Shun. And so it has to be something big or it has to be someone unknown, big in terms of like star status. I have no feel for this whatsoever.
Yeah, and there's no immediate announcement for Shunmare to be teaming with X. So we kind of have to wait and see when the next time this guy reemerges. Maybe it'll be in Hakata. Maybe wait until November in Korakuen.
I'm excited to see it no matter what, though.
As they went to intermission before this, there's now a new snack to be provided at Korakuen Hall starting in November. I don't know what exactly it is, but it's a twisted fry thing for 700 yen with Dragongate people's names on it. But more importantly to our interests, the Gate of Nostalgia has been announced. It will be at Shinkiba First Ring coming up in towards the end of this month. Am I right with that?
November 17th or October 17th? Which one is it?
It is November 17th. It is at Shinjuku Face. I exited out of the schedule menu for that. And so far, we have a lot of units amounts, Deep Drunkers. So for me and me alone, Mad Blanky.
That's going to be, hold on, that's going to be what, KZ and Arikan?
Yeah, I think it has to be KZ and Arikan. Yeah. Well, Takuya Sugawara is not walking through that door, Case.
Well, he could, unless am I forgetting something?
I mean, there's a lot of people that kind of slummed around there. I mean, Konda was a part of it. I think technically for a moment, CyberKong was too, but CyberKong will probably be in Mad Blanky, who was announced.
Okay, so Deep Drunkers was Sugawara, Arikan, Konda, KZ, and Naoki Tanizaki. So Tanizaki's for sure a no. I guess they could do Arikan, Konda, KZ, but it wouldn't surprise, unless I'm forgetting something with Sugawara, it wouldn't surprise me if he comes back.
Yeah, I was more just making a joke about
Okay, all right.
Sugawara
Well,
coming through that door.
it's a terrifying proposition, but he actually might be coming through that door.
Right, yeah. RED, which I guess is going to be Hyo and Hyo, maybe at this point.
Hyo and Hip Hop Kikuta?
Yeah. Hyo and Hip Hop Kikuta, Mad Blanky, which there you go, Yamato, Naruki Doi, Problem Dragon, there you go there. Masquerade, which we see La Estrella has gotten out of Japan in time for that. Jimmy's, and I'm blanking on one more. Maximum. So Ben K and Jason Lee.
Yeah, because Doi, I'll be curious to see what they do with Doi if he does Mad Blanky or if he does Maximum. Because he did Mad Blanky last time. It wouldn't surprise me if he does Maximum this time.
And he is a man who keeps all of his gear. So anything's on the table. Anything's on the table for him. Hopefully Yamato gets new Mad Blanky shorts made for this.
So there you go. That'll be interesting to see. But I mean, RED, you can do Kikuta, Kai, and Hyo. You can do Kikuta, Kai, and Kanda. You can do Kikuta, Kai, and Yoshida. There's some stuff there, but you could do Kikuta and Diamante together. There's the
Diamante will be in RED. Yeah.
The pool there. I was with you. I was like, oh God, who's left? But no, there's a few more names there that are possible. So that'll be what a unit history. It's on Cage Match. Eita, Kazuma Sakamoto, Hyo, Kaito Ishida, Kai, BB Hulk, Daya Inferno, SB Kento, Hip Hop Kikuta, Diamante, Pac, Daga, Big R Shimizu, Ben K, Yasushi Kanda, Takashi Yoshida, Shun Skywalker, which was for one night, the last night, Shingo Takagi, Masato Tanaka, T-Hawk, L. Lindemann.
Was Masato Tanaka technically a member of RED? He was an assistant to Antios that summer, but I guess since he was still affiliated with Antios, he was incorporated in. The same thing with Shingo.
That summer, which was one night in Kobe World, I thought he
was in the Triangle Gate tournament that year.
Yeah, because it was like a weird thing where he also had another booking, so it was obvious that he was going to lose early. And it annoyed a lot of people. But no, you're right. He was an Antios guy because that was still Antios was at World 2018. That was my nadir and Dragongate fandom was that specific show. And then he doesn't show up again until 2022. So shame on you, Striga, for misappropriating Masato Tanaka as a member of RED when he was only an assistant to Antios. How dare you?
But it'll be fun to see that in November.
Absolutely. No, it's and also I'm looking at the tickets right now for Shinjuku Face, which granted I would hope that Dragongate could put anything in Shinjuku Face, but front row seats are sold out, reserved seat B is sold out, and special seats and reserved seat A both are, according to the ticket site, only have a few left. So there you go.
Hyo has just made his entrance at the Taiji Ishimori show, and he's brought back Hyo Bucks for this alone, so I don't think he's going to be getting into the ring for another 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, you've got some time before he gets there.
Yeah. Let's talk about this undercard from the Korakuen. We went to intermission with the newest version of Mexico contra Japan. This time it was Love and Peace, Hyo, Jackie Kamei, and Rita versus Luis Monte, and the at least in Korakuen, the network debut of the Panther Brothers fight Panther Jr. and Aero Panther. Aero Panther wins this with the Panther Press, which is a triple jump Firebird splash. And the boys who took the storm of the DGUSA show have finally made it to Dragongate proper after last year's training, and they are off to the races and amazing from night one.
Yeah, this is a match that's a few years in the making because they would have hopped on my radar sometime towards the end of 2022 when Kento and Takuma were still at that point on excursion. And then the match that we talked about last week that we have linked in the Voices of Wrestling Discord was the match that we thought was going to be Kento and Takuma's farewell to Mexico, was this big DTU tag title match between the Panthers and Kento and Takuma. And it became very clear at that point that the Panther Brothers, if they were doing that in DTU, that they could hang in Dragongate and would probably do very, very well if they ever got the chance to go over. Last year, they went to Kobe, trained the dojo, never wrestled on any shows, though. And then earlier this year, they had the WrestleMania weekend, one of the matches of the weekend, those guys and the Lucha Solar, was that the tag team name? The Solar.
Lucha Solos.
There you go, Lucha Solos. And, they had that match on the Friday Dragongate show that was Dragongate and Pro Wrestling Revolution. I don't think anybody came in with any expectations. I mean, I knew the Panthers. I did not know their opponents, so I was excited to see them, but they completely blew the roof off of that building. And from there, it became very, very obvious that they deserved at least a shot, not a spot maybe, but a shot in Dragongate. And what we got here, I think, was one of the most effective debuts, and I use that word specifically, one of the most effective debuts from a foreign wrestler or foreign wrestlers that we've ever seen. And Mike, I've done some research on this. I've got some notes. I can go through some notable debuts if you would like me to.
Let's do.
So again, I started thinking about this just because by the end of this match, and this was I thought a very good match, not a great match. I went 3 3/4 on it. I think Alan Forel on the Discord and the Dragongate channel brought up the one notable and undeniable criticism with this match, is that when Love and Peace started the heat section on Fight Panther Jr., the match for whatever reason did really grind to a halt ever so briefly, but it was noticeable enough that it's undeniable. It's a hot start, and then when Love and Peace take control and they get the heat on Fight Panther Jr., it's quick. It doesn't become an overbearing issue in the match, but the match does have all of the life sucked out ever so briefly. It's not really until the babyface comeback that things come back. But watching this match and seeing another insane tope to the floor, and then that step up Firebird splash on Kame for the finish that was hit perfectly, I was like, wow. I feel like they got these guys over, and I know exactly who they're going to be within the Dragongate universe going forward, which is pretty exciting because these are, Mexico City-based DTU high flyers, the same promotion that Flamita and Rocky Lobo came out of 12 years ago. And what I think is great about them, just before I talk about these debuts, is they don't fly around the ring like Dragon Kid does. There's a grace to what Dragon Kid does, and we've come to know that the Dragon Kid signature spots are going to look a certain way, and that it's his, the fact that he's been honing his craft for almost 30 years now, that we just know how those are going to look. With the Panthers, it's not that they're dangerous, it's not that they're reckless. I actually thought they did a remarkable job of meeting the working standard of a promotion where you're not allowed to make mistakes in their debut. But Mike, I think you would agree, when these guys take flight, it looks so dangerous. It looks dangerous for everybody involved in the biggest compliment way possible.
Yeah, it looks like that they have fulfilled the mandate of, I'm going to find a way to make myself go as fast to collide into you as hard as possible. Like like in the way that Dragon Kid is so majestic, and the way that like Flamita is able to have like these ungodly feats of nature where you're like, man, you've been doing this for so long and you're still able to do this. Their ability is like that. Panther Press, he's able to gain so much momentum with this that it feels like that these moves are being done with like extra force with it. And it's so contrary, but it works so well. And I think it's going to provide a nice contrast for them this tour.
So going through this list, it's not every foreign wrestler that has ever come to Dragongate, but I have 14 here. And as I went through the list, I went, wow, a lot of these were really great debuts. They really have a knack for, if not, I focus largely on just Korakuen debuts, but for one instance, there's, somebody who killed it in Hakata Star Lanes before they ever got to Korakuen. But, you think back to the first guys that ever went over, Jack Evans, Roderick Strong, they wrestled Genki Horiguchi and Naoki Tanizaki. And I think that was a strong debut. I think you were able to understand who Jack Evans and Roderick Strong were based on that match. One of the best debuts, I think, in the history of Dragongate was Matt Seidel's debut. This is June 16th, 2006. It's Seidel, Jack Evans, and Don Fuji against Yoshino, Naoki Tanizaki, and Naruki Doi. And it's in Korakuen, and it's a 10-minute showcase for, hey, Matt Seidel can do a moonsault higher than you can. He can do a shooting star press better than you can. And also, he can do all of this intricate chain wrestling with Yoshino and Tanizaki. And that one I rewatched after watching this match, and it really jumped out to me just how immediate it was that Matt Seidel understood what was needed to succeed in Dragongate. And it very much reminded me of this Panthers debut.
Yeah, Matt Seidel, especially like that era Matt Seidel, he you could tell how much like of a thinker he's always kind of been, because the person that he's had the matches with, but I feel like if we reran this and decided, you know what, let's do a Pac Ricochet feud with him across the year, it would be really cool. Would have been if he came in and had that feud with Masato Yoshino, because I feel like they had some special chemistry at that time.
Jimmy Rave is somebody that I want to mention real quick, and it's not like Rave went on to have this lengthy
Russell Jam hours here.
Exactly. It's not like he had this lengthy, prestigious Dragongate career, and so this is almost just a disqualifier, but I do want to point out that Jimmy Rave's Dragongate debut was in Korakuen. It was Seidel and Roderick Strong against Dragon Kid and Ryo Saito, against CIMA and Don Fuji, against Jimmy Rave and Masato Yoshino. The last time I looked at my match of the year by year spreadsheet, where I've got my top 10 matches going back to, I think I finished to like 2001. And now I would have to go back and redo all this because I would have much more lucha in there. But this was my number 10 match of 2006. Now, there are 7 guys in that match way more important to things than Jimmy Rave. But I do have to note that he did kind of crush it in his Dragongate debut. So Rave is there just as a historical anecdote. The best debut of all time. And I went back and watched this match as well. I rewatched this and I rewatched the Seidel match. Pac makes his Dragongate debut July 15th, 2007. This is in Hakata Star Lanes. And it's CIMA, Dragon Kid, Susumu Yokosuka, and Pac against Cyber Kong, Jack Evans, Shingo Takagi, and El Generico. First of all,
so this is Typhoon versus New Hazard.
Yes, yeah. And this is sort of right at the start of all these. Good Lord, what a match. I mean, it's unbelievable the talent involved, and this is 2007 Cyber Kong, so it's not like he's holding anything back here, but this is really the gold standard. This is so much better than the Pac Korakuen debut, which was a few days later, and that was Pac and Ryo Saito against Delirious and Super Shenlong. That did nothing for anybody. But this match in Hakata, it's not necessarily built around Pac, but you see why this guy was great even then. And it's a lot of Generico doing everything that he can to make Pac look great. And it's a lot of Shingo doing everything that he can to make Pac look great. So that remains the gold standard. I would not put the Panthers on that level, but I do think that is sort of, if you're looking for something to watch this week and you can find that on the internet, I would highly recommend it. Just to quickly go through a few more here. Bucks debuted May 14th, 2008 against Saito and Susumu. I think I like the overall presentation, package, and execution of the Panthers more than that Bucks debut. I will say that this next one, I guess, is a backhanded compliment. Davey Richards debuted in Korakuen December 3rd, 2009 against Naoki Tanizaki. Mike, I would say from that match, we have a good idea of who Davey Richards was.
Yeah, we did. And we had him get into a fight with his wife about losing the FIP title to Masaki Mochizuki over that.
I forgot about that. I forgot.
That's why I was laughing. Remembering that.
God.
Go check out DGUSA, The Davey Chronicles.
Look, we've done a lot of good audio together, and we've done a lot of good solo audio. I just went back to the show you did 2 weeks ago without me, and I really enjoyed it. But the Davey Chronicles, which was every Davey Richards story that we covered during the Dragongate USA timeline. Oh God. One of the most fun things I've ever put together in my entire life. I really, really enjoy doing that. So
out of the 100 hours of DGUSA Rewind and Rewatch, a good solid 3% of it was spent around Davey Richards as the Davey Chronicles present to us. And
specifically just being able to go back and review the Iowa heist with wheelman Tony Kozina. That story's every bit as weird as I thought it was going to be. So that's in the Open the Voice Gate archives. I would highly recommend checking that out if you never heard it. But we can combine these two, the Brody Lee debut and the Ricochet debut. These were on December 21st, 2010. I would also put these as upper echelon Seidel Pac level debuts, because for both of them, for Brody it was the running power bomb, for Ricochet it was the double moonsault, but they had their one move, and on that show they were able to get that one move over, so that worked out great. For Brody Lee it was not enough time spent in Dragongate. For Ricochet, that kicked off one of the most decorated careers in this entire company. The Uhaa Nation one is interesting because he debuted on that Blood Warrior show. I feel like the Panthers looked more ready for this opportunity than Uhaa did then. Now, Uhaa at that point, I think, had been wrestling for maybe 18 months. The Panther brothers have been wrestling since they were 14. So there's that there. The Flamita Korakuen debut, I think the Panther Brothers outclassed him in that debut, but that was just, Flamita, that's November 7th, 2013, Eita, Flamita, and Rocky Lobo against Geiki Horiguchi, Yasushi Kanda, Ryo Saito. That is more, I think, just a happenstance of opportunity where the Panther Brothers got a ton of shine. That was an undercard match. The Peter Casa debut, this was June 2nd, 2016. Do you remember the Peter Casa debut?
Yeah, was this the one where he almost landed flat on the floor from a dive?
Well, that was every match that he was in, unfortunately. Yeah. No, this was an exciting one because it's probably the one that reminded me most of this match, even if the Panthers were better fundamentally than Casa ever was. But it was a match that was built around two things: a big dive to the floor, which might have been one where he almost missed everybody, and then a big finish. And he nailed the finish in that match in the same way that Fight Panther nailed the finish in this match. And for a brief moment in time, we were like, oh my God, they really have somebody with Peter Casa. How exciting. So there's that match. The other two that I want to mention really quick, the Rascals and Bandito on January 16th, 2018. That has given Bandito the career that he's had. That's probably the last time that Dragongate truly made somebody and broke the bubble in a real way, because Bandito's entire career hinged upon that one match, and then the Rascals doing the push moonsault spot that went everywhere. That got them into PWG. That opened up doors for them around the globe. It eventually got the Rascals signed. It eventually got Bandito to where he's at now. That I would maybe put slightly behind Pac in terms of the most efficient debuts of all time. And then the Diamante one, and Diamante wasn't any good when he debuted. So Panther Brothers far better in this than most of these debuts in history. Again, I think Pac is the gold standard. I think you've got to put Bandito and the Rascals up there, and then Seidel. And then after that, you're sort of looking at this match as one of the better foreigner debuts in Dragon Gate history.
No, I am totally with you on it. And it was nice to see, you could tell for the Panther Brothers, this was a real achievement for them, after last year, having being able to perform in the ring here. And coming out of this match, they booked for Hakata Panther Brothers versus D-Courage for the Twin Gate title. So we have that coming up this weekend, and we'll talk about that on Tuesday. So the company's ready to go off to the races with these guys, and I think having that kind of match in Hakata immediately shows you the level of impact they had on that debut.
Yes, no, I think that's worth noting, is that maybe that Twin Gate match was planned to begin with, but given their performance here, if they would have bombed, it's not like they had announced that match already. They weren't married to doing that match, but I think they did everything here to show that they're ready for a spot like that, and it's the match I'm most looking forward to this weekend.
Absolutely. Looking through the rest of the undercard, we had I'm going
to stop you for one. I got to mention this, and I'm going to be quick because I know we're going long here.
No worries.
Monte was unfucking believable in this match, and he was the air traffic controller that this match desperately needed, and it really gave me a new appreciation for him. When he had his mask on in 2021 and 2022, you and I would talk about how if anybody was paying attention to Dragongate, they would just throw him bags of cash to get him into their promotion, because there was a point in time in wrestling.
He should be on the top of the wish list for WWE AAA, in all honesty.
You're 1,000,000% correct. And there was a point in time when he was masked where it's like, man, this guy would be an asset to any roster in the world. He's that good. You should be fumbling over yourself to sign this guy and get him away from Dragongate. Since he lost his mask, I think that's changed a little bit. I don't think the charisma is there without a mask that everybody would have hoped for. But what I've seen from him this year is that we're in 2021 and 2022, where he would have been an asset to any roster in the world. I think what he's done this year, with the work with Flamita, with the work with Bandito, now the work with the Panthers, is that he has shown that within his own roster, within his own company, he is as valuable as you could possibly get. Think about the work that he's done on a macro level in Dragongate this year. Not his best in-ring year ever. 2022, he was flirting with top 10 in the world. 2023, when he was healthy, he was right there. He's not doing that anymore. He has some ridiculously high-level stuff. But just to think about all the positions that he's been in, where yes, maybe Flamita is the one that we come on here and rave about, and maybe Bendito is the one that we sort of pick apart. There's this constant presence with Monte where you just never have to worry about him with new talent, with old talent, with Mexican wrestlers, with Japanese wrestlers. It's just amazing what he's been able to do. And it really jumped out to me in this match how he has great chemistry with Kame. He has great chemistry with Rita. He has great chemistry with Hyo. And he set his own partners up to win in a way that I just don't think every wrestler could have done. He knew exactly what to do to get them over, and it worked, and I thought it was awesome, and I just want to mention that really quickly.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where we have now reached the point in his career with Dragongate that I feel like he already well exceeded our expectations. I mean, coming in the way he did, I know you mentioned it briefly, but the level of improvement where legitimately over a 2-year stretch, you could say, no, he's the most improved wrestler this year and the next year. And I feel like he might be I think you raised a really important point that he might be one of the better flying style ring generals that there is. And there's probably no one, now that I'm really thinking about it, there's no one who I want to kind of be that stabilizing force within a match like this other than Luis Monte. He's really kind of made that position his own.
I think just because of age, I think he's fully past Claudio as the best base in wrestling. You know, we used to call this guy Mexican Claudio, and I think Claudio's still great, but Monte is just better now. I mean, Luis Monte is a better wrestler than Claudio Castagnoli is in 2025, and I think as the year has progressed, and I've watched more and more of him, it just in environments like this, he's going to end up getting that TJP spot in my SFM 50 this year where maybe there's only 4 or 5 truly great Monte matches this year. I mean, he's in one of the 10 best matches in wrestling this year in one of those 3-way trios matches, but I don't know. I just think for what we all value out of wrestling, or at least what I think we should value out of wrestling, I can't name 50 guys more efficient and better at their jobs than Luis Monte.
No, and it's definitely one of those situations that when you look at a roster and you have him on there, he adds so much more to it than just a normal wrestler would. And I think Flamita's the better wrestler. I don't want to get into this weird like Segunda Keita. Well, you know, the way Monte stands there is actually way better than the way that Flamita does all this cool shit. Like that's not the argument here. But I also know that Flamita can't do the things that Monte is doing, even if Flamita is better and obviously more spectacular. Yeah, no, and I think that's an important distinction to be made.
Love it.
So looking at the rest of this card, we had a hidden gem and 2 stalwarts of the Twin Gate division facing off. We kind of felt like that this would be a next contender match between Jason Lee and Kota Minoru of Gaja Dokoro and Susumu Yokosuka and Kagatora. That's right, Yokosuka Chome, the original Jimmies. And they had themselves like just a barn burner of an undercard tag match. This ended up being my favorite thing on both outside of that trios match of the undercard by far.
Yeah, just quickly on this, Susumu was incredible. His chemistry with Jason Lee was outstanding, and I
Super
like that.
Exploder.
I like that as time has gone on. You know, at one point these guys had great chemistry with Jason Lee as a junior heavyweight, and Susumu having size and stature over him, and now Jason Lee as a heavyweight. Their chemistry has shifted. It looks different than it used to, and it's still equally as good.
Yeah, Jason takes this bump on a Jumbo no Kachi on the apron that looked, and the crowd reacted like it was the most devastating move that happened all night.
It was sickening.
Yeah, real fun one. It was a Yokosuka spike into a Jumbo no Kachi for the win here. Maybe this is the start of the Susumu heat up starting here before the tournament. We had a trios match, the whole complement of D Courage, Yuki Yoshioka, Dragon Dia, Ryoya Tanaka versus the whole complement of Natural Vibes, Strong Machine J, KZ, and UT. This kind of was a feature D Courage match. UT playing the Lost Post here, DDT for that UT took. And the big storyline of the match was Natural Vibes deciding to focus on Dragon Dia because him and Dragon Kid's busy week that they had and jet lagged, but Dragon Dia is not someone who suffers jet lag, apparently.
No, I thought Dia was incredible in this match. It was very fun for how short it was.
Our touch football match of the evening, Mochi Fuji.
Oh, God, is this still going? Oh, my God, this match sucked. Sorry, I know you're going to read the names here, but holy shit did I hate this.
Yeah, it was Mochi Fuji, Takashi, and Punch Tobinaga on the unaffiliated side versus Paradox, Yamahulk, and Not Hug. It went on kind of forever. Everyone just kind of was beating up on Punch Tobinaga, but BB Hulk got the fall, which I feel like is something we don't say a whole lot, with the first flash on Punch, and it took forever.
Oh, my God. All right, moving on. I liked the match before. Let's end on a high note.
Yeah, we're going to end on this high note because Daiki Yanagiuchi has broken the laws of physics, Case. That's ever since he got the win in Kobe, he has been completely off to the fucking races as Daiki and Ryofuda team up against Akihiro Sahara and Mochizuki Jr. in a post Mochi Dojo match. Daiki gets a win with a move that is called the Halo, but it's best described as a leg scissors destino. I don't know if it was executed as planned necessarily, but it was one of the more damnedest things I saw on this show.
It reminded me of the tilt-a-whirl leg drop thing that Hechicero does. I thought that's what he was trying to do. Maybe it wasn't, but it was spectacular, even if it's not entirely what he was going for. Ryofuda, my big complaint is I don't know if the guy could be great without a Mochizuki in the ring. That still remains true, but I have shifted.
There is a Mochizuki in this match.
Exactly. And so I have shifted my feelings from annoyance when I see him wrestle a Mochizuki because I know it's going to be good, but I don't trust him in any other environment too. He's now on this run of about 6 months where he's healthy and he's kind of being pushed, and he's good enough in every match that I see him to where I felt like I could enjoy this match for what it was and not have any looming PTSD about Ryofuda in my head. Really fun opener here, 3.5 stars, the exact type of energy that I want from a Dragongate opener in Korakuen Hall.
Yeah, it was an absolute blast of a opener. Sahara showing a little bit more of a power edge. I know I was kind of kidding when I said he could qualify for the Brave Gate, but it looks like now he's going to be off to the races. 100 kilos. He was looking cool. Mochi Jr. was wrestling mean, which was nice to see, and it just was a hell of an opener. I was 3.5 stars as well. Case, before we get out of here, do you want me to run through the Hakata lineup that's going to be on the network on Sunday?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, on the daytime, we have Luis Monte teaming with the unit he should be with, D Courage and Ryoya Tanaka against Shun Mare as the opening match. Takashi versus Genki Horiguchi and Hakata. This is usually where you get to see more. Genki Horiguchi is on these more Western Japanese swings nowadays. Mentally face off against Hyo and Benkei. Natural Vibes versus Love and Peace, Jackie Kamei, Rita, and Mochizuki Jr. The semi-main event is that Twin Gate title match on the day session. That's Yuki Yoshioka and Dragon Dia versus the Panther Brothers. And the main event for the day is Paradox versus Gaja Dokuro, Yamato, Dragon Kid, BB Hulk, and Susumu Yokosuka versus Madoka Kikuta, Kai Ishin, and Yoshiki Kato. The evening, we open with Panther Brothers versus Tanaka and Fuda, Takashi versus Monte, three-way tag, Dragon Kid and BB Hulk, Strong Machine J and UT, and Maraha Isapa is going to be there. Genki Horiguchi is bringing Ryo Saito off the bench for this one. 8-man tag, Love and Peace versus Gaja Dokuro, Hyo, Kamei, Rita, Mochizuki Jr. versus Kota Minoura, Jason Lee, Kai, and Yoshiki Kato. And then you have the semi-main event, Shun Mare versus Ishin and Madoka Kikuta. Yes, that's right, Pudge. That's what we're having right here. And then our main event of the evening session, a special 6-man tag team match with the King of Gate winners featuring Yamato, the winner of 2016, Susumu Yokosuka, winner of 2014, KZ, the winner of 2021, Benkei, the winner of 2019, Yuki Yoshioka, the winner of 2022, and our most recent winner, Dragon Dia of 2024. The way that this is going to work is that they're going to be doing a public lottery, so I guess they're going to do the envelopes, and we'll see what the matchup is at the time of the show.
Well, they've got Susumu in 2 main events, so it's going to be very easy to tell if they're going to take him seriously or not coming out of this weekend. I think Shun and Hamare versus Monte and Tanaka and Fuda versus the Panthers on those separate shows, I think those sound awesome, and I'm looking forward to talking about these next week.
Absolutely. And we'll be back next week to talk all about that. Case, we went a little long. Do you have anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here for the weekend?
I do not.
All right. You could follow us on social media at Open VoiceGate, both Twitter and Blue Sky. You can follow us both independently on Twitter. Case is at _InnerCase. I'm at Fujiheya. If you want to step in the conversation, step inside the Voices of Wrestling Discord. That's where there's a Dragongate channel with people talking about all the news, live commenting on shows, all of the weirdness coming out of GLEAT talked about in the Dragongate channel too. There's also a GLEAT channel, and if you want to see a graveyard, there you go. But also, and maybe more importantly, there's the Open the Voice Gate channel in the Voices of Wrestling Discord. In case that's where we post all of our historical shows. That's where we have our match list. You have this really special Google sheet. We talked about the DGUSA series a little bit today. Earlier this week, we had those days. Thanks to everyone for your kind words. We're glad to be back at that. But you have a spreadsheet there of all of our evergreen content. I think we're now pushing 80 episodes of it at this point.
Yep, it's been a good run. More to come, and I'm looking forward to talking to you next week.
Yep, and we will be back with you at our normal time next week. So until then, take care, everyone. Bye.
Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragongate is, how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the Voice Gate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragongate coverage, Open the Voice Gate.
Hey kids, Jeff Hawkins from Shake Them Ropes here, and for almost 15 years we have been part of Voices of Wrestling. Myself and Chris Novembrino give a review of that week's news, the lazy river of wrestling criticism of that week's WWE and AEW, and then Vader Club, where we watch something from one of our past, or something we may have missed. Smart, snarky, and sometimes serious, but not always. That's us, and if that's your vibe, we'd love to have you listen to Shake Them Ropes every week on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.